You ever seen a doll blink when its eyes are glued shut? Because I have. And it wasn't just once, it was every hour on the dot. I took a night shift security job at a shut-down doll factory deep in the woods of Missouri just to pay the bills. But now I know why the last guard left mid-shift, screaming, bloody, and missing both eyes. Asterisk, there's something wrong about a building that smells like baby powder and embalming fluid at the same time. That was the first thought that hit me as I stepped through the rusting front doors of the Hollingsworth Doll Works, a crumbling brick structure hidden in a forest off Route 17, about a half hour outside the nearest town, Foster Ridge. I'd never even heard of the factory until I saw the job posting. Night security needed, $40 per hour. Must not be afraid of dolls. I laughed when I read it. Hell, $40 an hour to sit around and watch some lifeless plastic? Sign me up. That I should have known better. The manager, Mr. Carlin, met me out front. Late 60s, balding, thick glasses, and a nicotine-stained mustache. He barely looked me in the eye when he handed me a clipboard with a single sheet of paper. The paper was yellowed and smelled like mold. On it were the rules, typed, but with a few words underlined in red pen. Rules for night watch at Hollingsworth Doll Works: clock in at exactly 9 p.m. Not a minute before or after. Stay on the main floor between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. The upper floors are off limits until 10. Do not talk to the dolls, even if they talk to you. At 11:11 p.m., press the red button in the break room. Wait until the humming stops. If you see a doll on the security monitor that wasn't there before, do not look away, not even to blink. The doll, named Madeline, is kept behind a glass case in room B. Do not open the case. Do not enter room B. If you hear soft singing after midnight, hide under the desk and cover your ears. Do not come out until the singing stops. Never fall asleep. Never let the dolls see you cry. If you lose track of time, it's already too late. I chuckled at first, thinking it was some sick in-house joke. Carlin didn't smile. You're serious? I asked. He looked at me for the first time, his pupils dilated, his lips twitching. Do exactly what the rules say, Mr. Vale, or you'll end up like the last Nightwatchman, or the one before him. The factory was enormous inside. Faint overhead lights buzzed to life as I stepped into the entry hall. The walls were lined with glass display cases, each one containing porcelain dolls in frilly dresses, sailor suits, nightgowns, hundreds of them. Their button eyes followed me. I felt them watching me, even though logic screamed otherwise. The place had been shut down since 2009 after a fire in the East Wing. But the dolls, they looked brand new. Almost like they'd been cared for, cleaned, even brushed. Their hair shimmered in the dim light, their tiny mouths smirking like they knew something I didn't. I checked my watch. 8:59 p.m. I tapped the old wall-mounted time clock and slid in my punch card. Ka-chunk, 09:00 p.m. exactly. The control room was located just off the main hallway, and it was unimpressive. A dusty desk, 6 grainy CRT monitors that flickered between black and white camera feeds, a drawer full of batteries and old, moldy chewing gum, a walkie-talkie with only one channel. On the monitors, the factory's floor stretched out in eerie stillness. The assembly line, the paint station, the storage vaults, and one feed labeled Room B, Madeline. That camera was off. Static. I leaned back in the chair and lit a cigarette, staring at the screens. For the first hour, everything was quiet. Too quiet. At 10:01, my walkie crackled. Shhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh something moved on camera too, the assembly line. A doll. A tiny figure in a red velvet dress. She hadn't been there before that I looked closer. She turned her head that I nearly dropped my cigarette. The doll was blinking. Slow, deliberate that I flipped through the rules, my fingers shaking, until I reached number 5. If you see a doll on the security monitor that wasn't there before, do not look away. Not even to blink. I stared at the screen. My eyes started to burn. Minutes passed, and then the doll smiled. The screen went black that I leapt up, heart pounding, and sprinted down the hallway to the assembly floor. It was freezing. The overhead lights flickered. A conveyor belt groaned to life for a moment before sputtering back into silence. There, on the belt, sat the doll in red. Her head tilted to the side. She was gone from the screen, but there in front of me, real, tangible, solid. I didn't blink. I whispered to no one that that's when I heard it. Do you like me, Mr. Vale? I nearly screamed. The voice was tiny, coming from behind me, high-pitched, like a child's. I turned slowly. Nothing there, just rows of dolls that staring at AT-1110. I stumbled back into the break room, shaking. The red button was embedded in the wall, next to the vending machine. I pressed it. A deep humming began beneath the floorboards. It wasn't mechanical, it sounded almost organic. Like singing, but deep and wrong, like the sound of a funeral dirge in reverse. It grew louder, vibrating in my bones. I waited. I wanted to scream. And then, just as suddenly, the sound stopped. Rule 4 complete at T1155. I made a mistake. I walked past room B. The glass was fogged from the inside. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. Inside the case, in a frilly white dress, sat Madeline. She was different. Her eyes weren't buttons. They were human, gray, wide open, and she was crying. I turned to run, and the door slammed shut behind me. I don't know how long I was locked in. My watch stopped working. The camera in room B sparked to life in the control room. I could see myself on the monitor, banging on the door, screaming, but I never heard a sound. Just her singing, soft, sweet, like a lullaby your mother hums when you're too scared to sleep. But it wasn't English. It wasn't anything human. I covered my ears. Curled under the desk. Rule 7. If you hear soft singing after midnight, hide. Cover your ears. Don't come out. I obeyed. The singing went on for 6 hours. When the lights finally flicked on, and I felt warmth from the sunrise through the cracks in the boarded windows, the door to room B swung open on its own. I didn't wait. I sprinted for the exit, never looking back. Carlin was waiting outside, drinking black coffee and watching the tree lean. You made it, he said without turning. I wanted to punch him. Scream. Demand answers. But all I said was, what the hell is Madeline? He lit a cigarette, exhaled slowly, and finally looked at me. She's the first doll this place ever made, he said. I frowned. So, she was modeled after the founder's daughter. The real Madeline died in 1911. Fell into the gears. Her father built the factory over her grave. I swallowed hard. And the others? He didn't answer. But behind me, I swear I heard 100 tiny voices whisper, Do you like us, Mr. Vale? The morning light felt fake. I stepped outside the factory and stared up at the pale sky, my legs wobbling like I'd been drugged. Every inch of my body screamed to run, flee this godforsaken place, and never look back. But Carlin was already handing me a fresh punch card. You made it through the first night. Not many do. His voice had no triumph. It was like he was condemning me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, handed it to me. Inside was $400 cash. Come back tonight, he said flatly, or they'll come looking for you. I didn't sleep that day. I tried. God knows I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Madeline, sitting in that glass case, crying without sound. Her lifeless porcelain face twitching. The little red dress doll grinning in the corner, bending her head too far sideways. My apartment was filled with silence, but it wasn't comforting. It was charged, like the calm before a tornado touches. Down at 8 p.m. I was in my CAR.BY 845. I was pulling into the gravel lot outside Hollingsworth Doll Works again. God help me, I went back. The rules were still there, taped to the wall by the time clock. But someone had added 2 new ones. If any doll is missing from the front display case, do not search for it. If the static on the monitors forms a face, look away immediately. Do not engage. I stared at the rules for a long time. Then I did what I always do when I'm terrified. I pretended I wasn't. I punched in Kachunk 09:00 p.m. exactly. The factory was colder tonight. The air stank of burning plastic, even though no machines had run here in over a decade. The lights flickered more violently. One of the hallway bulbs exploded as I passed under it, raining glass onto my jacket. I in the control room. The monitors were already on, except this time, there were 7. A new one had appeared. The label read, Basement Hall, B4. I leaned forward. Basement, I muttered. There's a basement. I remembered the blueprints I saw during my onboarding. There'd been no mention of a B4 level. On the new monitor, there was nothing but pitch black. But I could hear it. Static. Soft. Churning. Almost like breathing. 10:05 p.m. Movement on camera 3. The paint room. A doll stood on the far table, facing the wall. Another appeared behind her. Then another. I counted 6 total, all facing the corner. They hadn't been there 5 seconds ago. Then they began to tilt their heads, perfectly in sync. 45 degrees, then another 45, until they were bending so far backward, their faces disappeared behind their own torsos. Crack, 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 the sound of ceramic joints twisting. Or maybe breaking. I turned away from the monitor to vomit into the trash can. When I looked back, they were gone. I didn't go to investigate. I learned my lesson on night 1. Instead, I stayed by the desk, watching the monitors closely. That's when something strange happened. The basement before feed flickered, briefly illuminating something shaped like a person crawling on the ceiling. It was too fast to catch. Just a flash of movement. But I swear to God, it had doll hands. At 11:11 p.m., I sprinted to the break room and slammed the red button. This time, the humming was louder. Angrier. A scream joined the humming this time. Faint, but very human. It sounded like a child screaming from inside the walls. I punched the button again, harder. Nothing happened. The humming and screaming rose in pitch until my ears started bleeding. Then silence. Rule 4. Complete. Barely 11:35 p.m. The lights went out everywhere. The monitors, the hallway, the factory floor, total blackout. I clicked on my flashlight, but the beam only reached a few feet. Then I heard it. Plastic footsteps. Soft, but many. A dozen. No, more than that. Tiny footsteps, pattering across tile and concrete and metal, somewhere behind me. One of them whispered, "You didn't clean up, Mr. Vale." I turned, and something cold touched my leg. I bolted, crashing into shelves, tripping over wires. Until I reached the maintenance locker. I slammed the door and held it shut, praying. Then I heard a knock, followed by another. Then dozens, hundreds, of tiny fists banging on the metal walls. The door buckled, but didn't break. And then, silence again. I didn't move for 30 minutes. Midnight. I crawled back into the control room, half wishing something had killed me already. And that's when I saw it. On monitor 1, in the front lobby, a doll was missing. One of the large Victorian style dolls with a cracked face. Gone. I flipped through the rules, heart slamming into my ribs. Rule 11. If any doll is missing from the front display case, do not search for it. Too late. I had already noticed. I read the rule again. My eye caught movement in the monitor's reflection, not in the monitor. Behind me. I turned. It was standing on the desk. The Victorian doll. Cracked smile. One eye missing. It raised its tiny hand and pointed at me. Then, it said in a voice not meant for something without lungs, "She's watching you." I threw the monitor to the ground and sprinted out of the room. Not caring where I was going. I ended up near the elevator shaft, the one marked inoperable, sealed. But now it was open. Inside, instead of an elevator car, there was a long metal ladder going down into darkness. And from the depths below, I heard something crawling. Not walking, crawling. Something with sharp nails scraping metal. Then, faintly, "Do you like me now, Mr. Vale?" I backed away slowly, then ran the opposite direction. I didn't care about the rules anymore. I wanted out. But every exit I tried was sealed shut, bolted, barred, gone. Even the windows were gone. Where they had been, there were now just blank concrete walls. The factory had shifted, trapped me inside. I stumbled into a room I hadn't seen before. Room D. Not on the blueprints, not on the map. Inside were dozens of dolls, limbless, eyeless, cracked open like dissected frogs, and on the walls, photographs, old, black and white. Of children, some smiling, some crying. One photo had the label, "Employee of the Month, Madeline, age 9. My breath caught. She had been real, and she'd worked here. As a child, another photo, a man in a lab coat. His face was scratched out with something sharp. Underneath, Dr. Elwin Roth, head of doll programming. What the hell was a doll programmer? Then I saw the mirror. It was full length, but my reflection didn't move with me. It just stared. Then, its lips moved. "She's waking up, Mr. Vale." Behind me, I heard the faint sound of dozens of doll heads turning at once. Creak. I didn't turn around. By the time I reached the control room again, the power had returned. The monitors were flickering. Every single one showed room B. Even the feeds that were labeled elsewhere. Now just room B. Room B. Room B. Room B. and every monitor showed a different angle of Madeline's case. She was no longer inside it. The door to room B creaked open, and then she walked out. Not crawled, not dragged, walked. She was nearly 4 feet tall. Face porcelain, eyes too big, mouth stitched shut. She moved like a marionette, but without strings. She stopped in front of the hallway camera, tilted her head, and then, one by one, the other dolls began to move too, marching, gathering, forming ranks, like an army, and I finally understood. This place wasn't haunted. It was a tomb, and something inside was beginning to wake up. When I first signed up for this job, I thought I'd be babysitting shelves full of antique dolls. Now I know better. This place isn't just haunted. It's a living, breathing organism, fed by memory, grief, and blood, and something down in the basement is building an army. 9:00 p.m. The third night my hands shook as I punched in. Ka-chunk. Rule 1. Clock in at exactly 9 p.m. Not a minute before or after. I wasn't sure if it still mattered. The rules felt like a trap now, less about survival and more about ritual. Feeding something old, something that lived behind walls and inside glass eyes. The front display case had 3 empty slots tonight. The dolls didn't even pretend anymore. The monitors greeted me with static and flickers of motion. One screen, camera B4, was clearer now. The static had faded, revealing a long, dim corridor carved in stone, not concrete. The floor was dirt. The ceiling was wooden beams. At the far end of the hallway, something had been etched into the wall. All children deserve to play forever. Beneath it, scrawled in red, he built them a home. Now they build him a body. I almost didn't notice the new sheet of rules taped to the control room door. The handwriting was shakier this time, almost childlike. Warning: updated night, 3 rules. Warning 13. Do not go near the elevator shaft after 10:30 p.m. 14. If a doll offers you a gift, accept it, but do not unwrap it. 15. Basement B4 is strictly off limits. 16. If Madeline speaks, lie to her. 17. Don't answer the phone if it rings between 12:44 and 12:46. 18. Never say your full name out loud after midnight. 19. If the factory goes silent, whisper, "We remember you, Dr. Roth." 20. The doll maker is listening. I didn't want to know what would happen if I broke even one of them. But I'd soon find out. 10:17 p.m. The whispering game I was watching. The camera 4 feed, old storage wing, when I heard the first whisper. "Mr. Vale, want to see what we made?" It wasn't over the intercom. It was inside the room. I turned. Nothing. But then I saw it. A small doll standing on top of the filing cabinet. This one had human hair. Matted. Wet. Its eyes blinked independently, one faster than the other. In its cracked ceramic hand, it held a small box, wrapped in lace. It extended it toward me. Rule 14. If a doll offers you a gift, accept it, but do not unwrap it. My fingers trembled as I took it. The doll smiled, then leapt off the cabinet and scuttled under the table like a rat. I shoved the box in my locker and locked it tight. But I swear I could feel it moving in my pocket all night. 10:44 p.m. The elevator. I was pacing the second floor when I heard it, the elevator humming. But, Rule 13. Do not go near the elevator shaft after 10:30 p.m. I stood still, heart pounding. Then, a voice echoed up the shaft. It wasn't a doll's voice. It was deep, gravelly. Male, Vale, come see what I've made. She misses you. My knees buckled. That voice, whoever it was, knew my name. I ran, but not fast enough. Behind me, I heard the chains on the elevator rattle, then the unmistakable sound of something heavy crawling up metal walls. 11:11 p.m. The red button. I didn't wait. I slammed the button the second the clock ticked over. This time, the humming came from under the floor, but it wasn't mechanical. It was a choir of children, singing in unison. Off-key. Roses are red, violets are blue. We stitched her eyes, and soon it's you. The lights flickered. One of the bulbs screamed as it shattered. The humming stopped, and so did the air. The whole building went silent. No humming. No creaking. Not even the usual doll steps. Complete silence. I remembered Rule 19. If the factory goes silent, whisper, "We remember you, Dr. Roth." I whispered it. Twice. My voice cracking. "We remember you, Dr. Roth." The silence broke with a thunderous slam, as if something massive had dropped inside the walls. Then the dolls started singing again. Midnight. The locked room 12 had always been padlocked. Tonight it wasn't. Inside were rows of tall, glass tanks. Floating in the fluid were body parts. Not human, not doll, something in between. Some of the faces were half-finished. One eye socket, stitch marks across the cheeks. And in the center of the room was a chair, one that looked like it belonged in a dentist's office, except instead of tools, it had needles. Dozens. Tubes and wires connecting to the walls. On the table beside it lay a journal, dusty and cracked. Inside, scrawled in frenzied handwriting, "The bodies won't last. The children reject them. I need better materials. Porcelain is too brittle. But skin remembers." Dr. Elwin Roth. I stumbled back into the hallway, shaking that I didn't notice the phone ringing until the third shrill ring. 12:45 a.m. rule. 17. Don't answer the phone if it rings between 12:44 and 12:46. I froze. The phone kept ringing. Then it stopped, only to start again. This time from the control room and the hallway phone, both ringing together. I clamped my hands over my ears and ran into the stairwell. As I descended, I heard something whisper from every phone line. "Tell her your name. She just wants to play. 1:02 m. Basement B. 4. I broke the rules. I opened the sealed door near the old records room. There was no going back after that. The air grew thick and wet as I climbed down the rusted ladder. The bottom floor was wrong. Not man-made. It felt like a cavern carved by grief and obsession. The walls were painted in red, crude drawings of dolls, children, and twisted figures stitched together like Frankenstein monsters. On one wall, etched in sharp ink, "The dollmaker sleeps below." The corridor ended at a massive iron door, chains wrapped across it. But one by one, they uncoiled. As if something on the other side was waiting. I didn't want to go in, but I had to know. Inside, the room opened like a shrine. Thousands of dolls sat on pews, silent, watching, and in the center was a glass coffin. Inside lay Madeline, human, preserved, still in her frilly white dress, stitched from multiple children, different skin tones, hands too large for her body, her mouth sewn shut, but her eyes wide open, and they turned toward me. "I lied to you," I whispered. "I didn't like the dolls. I hate them. I hate all of this." Her eyes blinked once. Then her mouth tore open, stitches popping like overripe fruit, and she screamed. From every wall, dolls began to twitch, crack, stand, and march toward me. From the glass coffin, Madeline levitated, her limbs twitching like a puppet pulled by 1,000 strings, and she whispered, her voice full of static and sorrow, "He built us a world, and now we build his body." I ran, back through the tunnel, up the ladder, into the light, but it wasn't light anymore. The entire factory was now living. The walls pulsed. The floors bled. The monitors screamed static and showed my own terrified face. They had trapped me. This factory didn't just want a Nightwatchman. It wanted a host. And I was already infected. As I sat in the break room, blood leaking from my ears and nose, I heard the red phone ring one last time. I picked it up. There was no voice, just breathing. Then a child's whisper. "Good night, Mr. Vale. You don't work at Hollingsworth Dollworks, Mr. Vale. You were made for it." That's what Madeline said to me, without speaking. Her porcelain lips had cracked wide open, and the words poured into my mind like black syrup. And I believed her, because on my third night, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't have a reflection. 9:00 p.m. Night 4, I didn't want to return. But something made me. Not fear, not money. It was like a hook buried deep in my chest, tugging me back toward the factory. As if the building itself had attached strings to my spine. I tried not to clock in. I really did. But the moment that old time card clicked into the slot, ka-chunk, I knew. There was no quitting. Not anymore. The factory had changed again. There were no lights tonight. No cameras. No Carlin. Only dolls, hundreds of them, waiting silently along the walls, sitting on tables, perched atop vending machines. All of them turned to watch me enter. Their eyes weren't plastic anymore. They were wet. In the break room, the red button was gone, replaced by something worse, the final rule sheet. There is no clock out. The factory chooses who stays. If you reach the dollmaker's chamber, do not speak unless spoken to. Madeline remembers everything. If your reflection vanishes, you were never human. The doll maker must be finished. You are the final piece that I grabbed the radio to call Carlin, demand answers, but all I got was, Mr. Vale, he's almost ready. Then the radio melted in my hand. Literally, plastic and metal dripping between my fingers like candle waxed. Yet that's when I heard them marching again. This time, it wasn't small. It was heavy, deliberate, and coming from inside the walls. 10:44 p.m. The return of the doll maker. I don't know how I found the entrance again. Maybe the factory wanted me to. The elevator shaft was no longer sealed. Chains hung limp. And there, written in blood above the open tunnel, "Welcome home, Vale." I took a flashlight and descended for what felt like hours. My body ached. My mind screamed. But still, I went down. Basement B4, the black corridor. When I reached the bottom, the stone corridor had expanded and no longer a tunnel. It was a cathedral. Massive stone walls stretched upward, draped in doll parts. Thousands of faces embedded into the stone, their mouths sewn shut. In the center stood a throne, made of bones, real ones. That children's skulls lined the armrests, and upon it sat a figure tall, slender, covered in a black smock. Its hands were gloved. Its face was hidden beneath a cracked, featureless porcelain mask. This was the doll maker. Why me? I asked, my voice dry as dust, and no answer. Then Madeline stepped forward from the shadows, and no longer floating. She walked beside him like a princess beside her king. "Mr. Vale," she said, voice clear, "you followed the rules." She touched my chest with her tiny, cracked fingers. "That means you're ready." "Ready for what?" I asked. Madeline smiled. "To remember the truth of Vale." The doll maker raised one long finger, pointed toward the far wall. A mirror shimmered to life, and in it, I saw myself, but not as I am. I was a child. 12, wearing a red baseball cap and bloody overalls, running, screaming, through this same factory. Years ago. A boy who had gotten lost in the woods. Who found the doll works? Who went missing? Me. "That's not me," I whispered. Madeline nodded. "It was. Before he put you back together." The doll maker rose from his throne. He towered over me, 10 feet tall. And then he reached behind me and peeled back my skin. Not with claws, with gentle hands, like a sculptor undoing his own work. I didn't bleed, because there was no blood inside me. Only strings. The gallery of failures. He led me through a long hallway filled with glass tanks. Each tank held a version of me. A failed version. One had no mouth. One had no bones. One screamed silently until its eyes bled. "We've tried for years to remake you," Madeline said softly. "But you kept breaking." I stared down at my hands, at the seams. I hadn't noticed them before, but now they were so obvious. I wasn't real. Not anymore. 12:44 a.m. The phone rings one last time in the dollmaker's chamber. A single antique phone sat on a pedestal. It rang. I looked at Madeline. She nodded. I picked it up. A voice spoke. My mother's voice. "Come home, baby. Please. You've been gone so long." I wept, but the tears were oil. "You can't go back," Madeline whispered. "But you can make sure no other child ends like you." "How?" I choked. She smiled, and the doll maker handed me a needle. The final task. I stitched the last seam on a doll the size of a human. It had my face. It was perfect, and when I placed it on the throne, the doll maker bowed to me, then stepped inside the shell I had made, and smiled. "I remember now," I said. "I was the first." Madeline nodded. "And now you are the last." The factory groaned. The dolls stood still, and then the walls breathed in and exhaled. Everything shook. The doll maker looked at me and whispered the true final rule. The factory must always have a heart. And then he vanished. As did Madeline. As did the dolls. And I was left alone. 3:33 a.m. Rebirth. I woke in the control room. Alone. The cameras were off. The display cases were empty. The red button was gone. There were no rules on the wall. Only a nameplate on the desk. Vale Hollingsworth. Night manager. Me own last name. But I never told them that. I opened the locker. The lace-wrapped box the doll had given me still sat inside. I opened it. Inside was a single porcelain heart, still beating. I placed it on my chest, and it sank in like water. 6:00 a.m. Morning shift. There was a knock at the factory door. A man stood outside. Mid-20s. Nervous. Clutching a flyer. Is this the place hiring for night watch? I nodded, handed him a clipboard. He smiled. What's the job? I smiled back. Just follow the rules.